I'm Gupta here, founder at 10x Coder Kids, and an official Guinness record holder for the youngest computer programmer in the world. And today you are gonna be learning your Touchpad class 9 functions in Python, that is chapter 5, right? And this video is very important for you for your tests and everything. So without any delay, let's get started. Alright, so here we have the Python editor, okay? And we have a function is a block of organized and reusable code used to perform a single or related actions. For example, I can create a function calculation that may do an addition, subtraction, multiplication calculation. I may create a function greet that will greet the user, right? So I can have functions for multiple purposes, and these functions can be called anywhere in the program. When you call these functions, all the code inside the function is executed. So for example, I define my function. So this is my function, and in this I'll just say print hello, right? And I say print world, and I say print you are good. And now for example, I want to show this 3 times. I'll just call my function 3 times. If I want to execute this code 3 times, I'll just call my function 3 times, right? Without functions, what I had to do, I would have copied this code and I will have pasted it once, twice, thrice, and let's just correct the indentation, right? So I could have done it like this, or I could have created a function that would have made things much more clear. So with functions, your code is much cleaner, and you can use blocks of code, reuse blocks of code, right, whenever required, right? So functions receive data in the form of arguments and use it to run a specified set of statements and produce the final output. So what this is saying, for example, I have a function greet, right? So you can name your function anything, right? The define keyword is used to tell the Python code that to tell Python that define means that we are creating a function. Then greet is the function name, and here these brackets are important. In these brackets you can get data. So I can get name of user, and in this I can print good morning, name of user, right? So this name of user will be data for the greet function. Whenever I call greet function, I'll pass it the name. So I'll say Saion, right? I'll say viewer, right? And these names the greet function is getting as a data, and this data can be used inside of our function. All right. So it's running the program and it is saying good morning Saion, good morning viewer, right? So name of user is the data of the function, data to the function, and this data can be accessed anyway. I can say data over here and then use it as data. I can set some gibberish over here and I can use this gibberish, right? So this data can be accessed by any name, like just like variables you can define any name. Similarly, this data is being stored in a variable that is of the function, and you can use that variable anywhere. So now we will see the features of function. Some important features of functions are: a program is divided into small modules and each module performs a specific task. Each module can be called as per the requirement. So this is the reusable point. You can have a big chunk of code that you may have to use, like for example 3 times. Then you can put that code in a function and then call that function 3 times to basically use that code. So this will make your code much smaller and much cleaner. So we can call a function as many times as required. This saves the programmer the time and effort to rewrite the same code again. Therefore it also reduces the length of the program, right? Dividing a bigger program into smaller functions makes the program more manageable, so we will be easily able to edit your code. For example, you have an error in your code and you have three same chunks of code that you have to run, and you are not using functions, you just copy pasted all those three chunks of code. Now there's an error in one of the chunks. That means that there's an error in all the three chunks of code that you pasted. Like for example, I say print. So by mistake, instead of print, I write print and I'll say hello. And I copy this again and again. So paste, 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 and then paste, right? Now after running this, the console tells me that print is not defined, right? Did you mean print? Now everywhere I'll have to do print, then I'll have to do print, then I'll have to do print, and so on. So this is very hectic. So instead I can say define my print, and I can say over here that we just want to print in this, or we say print. By mistake we write print hello, and then we'll just call my print again and again, my print, and we'll just say okay, right? Now this tells us that there is an error, right? So now we only have to change it at one place. We just have to do print in my print, and everywhere the thing will be fixed, right? So it will be easy to debug, very easy to debug. All right. So components of Python function. A Python function consists of the following components. Name of the function, one of the most important components. A function name should be unique and easy to correlate with the task it will perform. So when you define a function, like if I want to perform a calculation, I'll say calculation. If I want to greet the user, I will say greet, right? We will not keep the names like ABC, DEF, or we can't keep DEF because DEF is a keyword that is in Python used to define functions, right? So anything that is already there in Python, you cannot keep it keep your function name. For example, you have a break keyword that you learned in the previous video. You can't keep the name break of your function. Alright, you get the point. Anything that is already defined in Python and is given to you by Python, you cannot keep your function name to that, right? So it should be readable. So if we want to greet, I'll say greet, right? Next, arguments. We'll get the arguments over here, that who we want to greet. So these arguments will be data input given to the functions are referred to as arguments. So every time when we call this function, we'll give it the name to whom this function has to greet, right? A function can or cannot have any arguments. So if you want, you can say that you want like a name argument, or you can say we don't want any arguments. It's up to you. It's your function. You can say whether it needs to have an argument or it does not need to have an argument, right? So over here, if we say name, every time this function needs a name argument, and we can use this name argument as data in a function. All right. Statements. The statements are the executable instructions that the function can perform. So all the code that you write here, all the code you write here will be your statements, and whenever the function will be called, those statements will be executed. Then we have the return value. A function may or may not return a value. Okay, so I think they will explain you the return value. Okay, no, they are not explaining you the return value, but this is for your understanding purposes. You should know what is exactly the return value. So for example, I say return hello plus name, right? So this will concatenate the two strings and it will say hello and whatever name it gets, and we are returning that. Now whenever I call greet, the thing will not be printed, right? The thing is not, okay, we'll have to give it a name also. Sorry, I forgot about that. Now whenever I call greet, then hello Saion will not be printed. Why? Because it is returning you the value. It's not printing the value, it's returning you the value. So you can print. So what this is doing, greet Saion is giving you hello Saion. Now greet Saion is giving you hello Saion. So now this hello Saion string can be saved in a variable. So we can say the greeting can be saved in a variable, or you can directly print the greeting the function is giving you, right? So either the function can print something, or it can not return any value, or it can return a value that you can print or save in a variable or do anything with outside the function, right? Pretty good. So this was your for explanation purposes. If you don't understand it, no worries. For this chapter you only need to know that return value of function may or may not return a value, the return value. So advantages of functions. Following other advantages of functions. You can write Python program in logically independent sections. So as I told you, you can divide your Python program into sections, and all you can write chunks of code in a function, and then you can call the function. So it will be logically there will be logically independent sections, right? And it will be easier to understand. The code will be easier to understand. Functions provide better modularity for your application and a high degree of code use. So this is basically saying that you will be able to reuse your code very efficiently. And I gave you the example over there that you may have to write a lot of statements, and you may have to increase your code by a lot of code, right? Instead, if you keep your code in a function, then the function, whenever you run the function, that code will be executed. As the program grows larger, functions make it more organized and manageable, right? The complexity of a program can be divided into simple subtasks, and function subprograms can be written for every subtask, right? So your program can be divided into tasks like greeting, calculation, etc., right? And every function can represent every task, right? Multiple persons can work on same program by assigning different functions to each of them. So if you're collaborating with your friends or a colleague, then each of you can create their own functions, so that the original code that is there does not mess up. Everything that you're writing is in a function encapsulated, and whenever you need to use that code, your colleagues or you can call that function directly, and it does not mess up the whole code while writing, right? In Python, a function can call the same function again and again, called as recursiveness. So this is an advanced topic. You just have to remember that a function can call itself again and again, and that is called recursiveness, right? You have to remember this much, and this is a very advanced topic, right? You could also bring in other libraries or modules to your program that contain predefined functions readily available for you. For example, Python gives you the print function that prints something on your screen. Python gives you the input function that through which you can take input from the user, right? So these are built-in functions. Now it will explain, your book will explain the two types of functions, that are built-in functions and user-defined functions, right? So we have mentioned earlier that one of the strengths of the Python language is that Python functions are easy to define and use. So they are easy to define and use. Alright, so Python functions can be categorized into built-in functions and user-defined functions. Let us discuss about them in detail. So built-in functions like the print and input function belong to the category of built-in functions. We have other built-in functions like range, type, etc. So you learned about range in your previous video, and the type function basically tells you the data type of any variable or value. So for example, if I want to print the data type of Saion, right? So this is a string data type. So type will tell us that Saion is a string data type. It says class str, and str tells us that it is a string data type. The main difference between these two categories is that built-in functions do not require to be written by us, whereas a user-defined function has to be developed by the user at the time of writing a program. So built-in functions are like for your easiness they are defined, right? That whenever you want to print something, you can just use the print function. Whenever you want the range, then you can use the range function, right? So these are built-in functions offered by libraries and Python itself, right? So these built-in functions easy your coding, right? While you are coding, it will easy it, right? And user-defined functions you will define to make your life easy while coding. So they all the functions are not built in, right? There's many functions are not built in, right? So you can create user defined functions. You can yourself create your functions to use them further in the program. So user defined functions are created by the user according to the need of the program. Once the user defines a function, the user can call it in the same way as built-in functions. Once you define your function, you can call it the same way as you call the built-in functions like print. User-defined functions are divided into various categories based on the parameters and return types. The functions that do not take any parameter or return anything are called type 1 functions. So the functions that do not take any parameter and do not return anything are called type 1 functions. The type 2 functions take parameters but do not return anything. Type 2 functions will take the parameters but they will not return anything. So this over here is a type, okay, so the type 3 functions take parameters and return output, right? So this is a type 3 function. It is taking a parameter and it is returning an output, right? When we say directly print over here we are not returning anything. So this is a type 2 function, that it is taking a parameter but it is not returning anything. And when we just do not take any parameter and we say directly do something and do not return anything, so we are not taking a parameter and we are not returning anything, so this is a type 1 function. Alright, now coming to your page number 52. Creating a function. So we can create a function in the following ways. Defining a functions, we can use the def keyword to begin the function definition. So we'll delete all this code, we'll go step by step. Def function will create a tell Python that we are trying to create a function. Naming a function, next we will name the function like greet. So naming a function, provide a meaningful name to your function. Then supply parameters. The function the parameters separated by commas are given in the parenthesis following the name of the function. So following the name of the function, you can give this bracket parenthesis, right? And basically if you want, we can take in parameters, or if we don't want, then we will not take parameters. We will take one parameter or two parameters. So to take two parameters, you will divide the names of the parameters using comma. Alright, and then finally you have the body of the function, when you have to give colon after all of these steps and then press enter, and then you have to write in the function whatever you want to execute when the function is called. Alright, now we'll just print over here hello plus name and hello name 2, right? So we are getting a slight issue over here. Okay, so we forgot to concatenate this over here. So this is saying hello name and hello name 2, right? So this is a type 3 function. We are this is a type 2 function where we have the parameters but no return type, right? Now when we want to use this function, we'll call the function. A function call can be called anytime from other functions or from the command prompt after the definition. So you can call these anywhere at any time. For calling a function, we type the function and pass the parameters, right? So we say we type the function and pass the parameters. So this, the first parameter is Saion, second parameter will be viewer. When passing the parameter and accepting the parameter, both the times the parameters should be separated by a comma, right? And you have now learned how to create a basic function, right? Very cool. Now they are giving you to add two numbers using all the three types of built-in functions, right? We'll do the same thing with a greeting, right? So instead of adding this is your exercise, we will do this with a greeting. So for a type 1 function, type 1 did not have any argument and did not return anything. So to greet the person, in this greet function we'll take a name and we'll ask the input, please enter your name, right? And then we'll say hello name, right? So this is a type 1 function. This function will give a basic greeting to your user of the program. In this function, whenever it is called, we will take in an input which will say us to enter the name, and then we will print we will greet the name, right? Greet the user. So when I call greet, this is a type 1 function, right? Remember, this is a type 1 function because it has no parameters over here and no return value. So please enter your name. So we are saying Saion, and now it will greet us, right? Now to do this same thing with a type 2 function. So what we'll do, we'll outside the function take out the name of the user, because we may have to save it in our database or use the name somewhere else also. So we'll say name input, please enter your name, right? And then in greet we will get the name of the user and then we will greet the person, right? So now what will happen, this is the type 2 function. It is accepting a parameter but it has no return type. So whenever first in this program I'm taking out the input and getting the user's name, then I'm defining our greet function. In the end, I'm calling the greet function, passing it name value, right? So whatever the name user entered, we are passing it to greet, right, as a parameter, and then it is greeting the name, right? Whatever name it gets, it is greeting that person. So the program will first ask my name, so Saion, then it will call the greet function, define the greet function, then it will call the greet function and pass it Saion. And then in the greet function it is greeting me, so it is saying hello Saion. Now to make this a type 3 function, we have to have a return value. So instead of printing over here, we'll say return hello plus name. And now whenever we are calling greet, we can save that in a greeting variable. So what is happening over here, that we have name, please enter your name, we'll get the name, and whenever greet is called, we are passing it name and it will greet the person, hello Saion, for example, and this will return us the full string hello Saion that we are saving in greeting. Now to show the greeting to the user, we'll print greeting. Alright, right? So all these three functions that I gave you did the same thing, but we did this in three ways: using the type 1 function, using the type 2 function, and using the type 3 function, right? Now we have program 2 to print a string by calling a function. This we are already doing using the greet function, right? Already we have taken this example. Now we have some more programs to add two numbers using a function. So very simple program. After this we have a program 4 to find the product of two numbers. So I'll show you both the programs. We'll define add. This will take so they are creating a type 3 function. So we'll say number 1 and we'll say number 2, and then we'll take out the sum of number 1 and we'll say take out the sum take out the sum of number 1 and number 2, right? And then we'll return the sum, right? And then outside we'll take in the input, so you'll say number 1 is equals to integer. We'll take in an integer and we'll say input, enter the first number. Next we'll take number 2 and we'll say input, enter the second number, right? And after taking both the numbers, we'll say the sum is equals to add, right? Because add is returning us a value that we'll have to save in a variable. So sum is equals to add number 1 and number 2, and then we'll just print the sum. So this is a simple program that will add two numbers. Enter the first number 12, enter the second number 20, and we get 32, right? Very cool. And similarly, in your fourth program, they're telling you how to take out the product. Very similar. We'll rename the function to product, right? So this will be a product function, and then instead of sum, we'll create the variable product, right? And we'll say num1 into num2, and we'll return our product, right? After taking in the both numbers, we'll save the value of a product in a prod variable, right? And we'll call the product method, right? And we'll give it number 1 and number 2, and then in the end we'll call product. So in this, we have a product function that will take out the product of the two numbers passed to it, and then it will return us the product. When returning the product, we'll save it in the prod variable and then print the product. So if we say 2 into 4, then we get 8, right? So very cool. Your homework for today was program 1 of your book, chapter 5. And this was it, guys, for the video. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, don't forget to smash the like button, and if you have any doubt, please comment down below, and I will see you in the next one.